Hi, I'm Becky Young. I'm going to show you a couple of ways how to use a Google Form to make a virtual escape room that can be used in your classroom to gamify and engage your students a little bit more than just a worksheet. So, I'm going to go through a couple of tips. My first tip for you is always, when you're making a Google form, always have the first question be the student's name. I know in my district, their email addresses are their ID numbers. And so this way it makes your data analysis a little bit easier. So what we're going to do when we do an escape room, the first thing we're going to do is look at some of the settings. And so in the settings, you can change, of course, if you're going to restrict users, I'm going to limit to one response. I'm going to allow students to edit after submit, and this is really just so they can dive into the information later and review that information. But the only way they can submit is if they get all the locks open for the escape room. And so it's not really so much that they're going to change their answers later, it's that they can interact with the information later. I always recommend changing the confirmation message. Um, Maybe it is something, encouraging. I mean, if they made it through the escape room, um, and maybe it's telling them what their next task is. Um, Now, please work on lesson 2-2, maybe. It could be, "Hey, have a great day," you know, "See you tomorrow," any of those sorts of things. I'm going to suggest that you use show progress bar. We're going to use multiple sections. But do not shuffle the question order. That's really important because the order of the questions matters because that's how they're going to get their codes. Now, with quizzes, you don't have to make it a quiz. There's a couple of examples that I'm sharing that have, a couple of multiple choice questions at the end that I wanted students to get that immediate feedback with. But as a whole, you don't need to make it a quiz because they can't move on if they don't get the correct answers. So you're going to go ahead and click save. What we're going to do is we're going to make a series of sections, and each section could be a different room or a different lock. So this will be lock A. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of um, multiple choice answers in this one. And so we could do something as simple as, what is the color of this ball? So you can use it with, you could import a video of you describing something, and you could have students selecting the correct item. You could have images. So if I want a ball, I could just click on the image icon, go to Google image search, and I could say red ball. And I'm going to pick this one right here. I'm going to go ahead and say insert. I'll have to resize it. It's going to be pretty big. Oops. And as I resize it, I'm going to, I like to center most of my pictures. And then what I can do is, because I need to make a code of some sort, so I can actually label each of my choices with letters like A, B, C, and D, and they can make a code from those letters. So if you already have some multiple choice items or questions, you could easily turn any of these things into an escape room. So I'm going to do one more question. So you want to do, several questions depending on your students, maybe three, maybe five. I wouldn't do too many because you're going to see in a little while how they're going to have to use their critical thinking and problem solving skills. Okay. So with this one, if I go ahead and I'm going to add another image. I'm going to search for a blue box. And so I'm going to go ahead and select this box right here. I'm going to insert it. I'm going to use the same choices. I don't want to confuse students at all. So I'm just going to resize it and center align it. And now I'm going to say I'm going to use the same ones, and B blue and C green and D yellow. So again, you could go on and you could continue with multiple choice questions. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another question. And so this question is actually where they're going to enter in their code to break that lock open. So I'm going to say enter the code, and you will have to determine what your students need, how much direction they'll need. Um, it will be made of, oops. Okay, so I can say enter the code. It's going to be made of the letters for your choices in order. And again, you might have to model this with your students. Um, they'll get the hang of it though. And you could make it as simple or as complicated as you want. The important thing is when you're entering the code, it has to be short answer. So let me show you something up here on this multiple choice question. When I'm on this multiple choice question, I have the three dots, the snowman. If I click on the snowman right here, I have a couple of options. Now, if I am in a short answer question and I click on the snowman, I have different options. And the one I need to pick is response validation. So I'm going to go ahead and select response validation. And now I have some more things I can customize. So what you're going to be doing is creating a code that students have to enter in. I either select numerical codes or text codes. In this case, since I'm having them use the letters from their choices, I'm going to pick the text code. And then you have a couple of options. I'm going to say contains. And then I need to make sure that I have my code. So this first one was A, and the second one was B. So my code that I want students to enter in is AB. If they don't enter in AB, they cannot move on. And so there's a place to put a custom error message. I definitely recommend giving some words of encouragement, thinking ahead to maybe kind of the mistakes that students make or misconceptions, or maybe it's something as simple as make sure you use all capital letters and no spaces. It could be something as simple as that. All right, so now we're going to go and make our next lock. So now there's so many options you could do. This will do lock two. And this one, what I'm actually going to do is I made a picture in Google Slides before and I downloaded it as a PNG. So I'm going to actually grab it from my Google Drive. Oh, it was right there. So I'm going to grab it right from my Google Drive and right here. I'm going to go ahead and insert it. All right, so what I did was I just took a picture from the internet and I put several numbers on there. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have students answer some questions. And I could have them be multiple choice, or I could just make them all short answer. So I'm going to say, which number represents the planet with the moon named Io? All right, and so what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to make it a short answer because they can just put in the number. I can make another one and I can say which number represents something that is no longer a planet, poor Pluto. And again, I'm going to make this one, I can keep it multiple choice, or I can just make it short answer. So I don't have to think about the choices, they're numbers. And then I'm going to make one more just so I can get a nice little code in here. So which number represents the red planet? And I'm going to make this one short answer too. Now, I just want students to try and answer some questions. So I'm always going to make them required. I always have them in there. And then the last question of that set, of that lock, will be where they're going to enter the code in there. So in this one, I have enter the code. So in this one, I'm going to say enter the code. It will be the numbers of your answers in order. And again, you might have to model it a little bit more. It just depends on your students. So automatically Google changed me to short answer. Just remember that for the codes, they always have to be short answer because we got to go down here to the snowman and click on response validation. So in this case, I actually have a number. So I'm going to keep number here. And then what I want to do is I want to say equal to. I want this exact number. So I have 5 for Jupiter, 9 for Pluto, and 4 for Mars. So what was it? 594. So the correct answer is 594. And again, I can say try again. Maybe review the planet activity we did. Something along those lines, like maybe what they could do to help themselves. And again, we want them to ask questions. So if they get to the point where they don't know and they have to kind of figure out, okay, I got at least one of them wrong, they're going to really have to either go back to their resources, ask questions, use some critical thinking skills, try to figure out which one is wrong. And so it really makes them stay engaged and it's fun. And I'll talk a little bit later about what you can do for students that might get frustrated. All right, so we're going to make another section. In this one, what I'm going to do is I am going to make one section where I am going to say it is all going to be true false. So I made one with multiple choice, I made one with numbers, and it could be numbers from math equations, anything that's labeled in a diagram. And now I'm going to make one with true false questions. So I'm just going to make up a couple of true false. And so I'll say true or false. And Google's going to be really nice to me and come up with, yep, suggestions at all. Look at that. I don't even have to type them out. Thanks, Google. So true or false? Say Miss Young is your teacher. I could say true or false. The year is 1900. I'm going to click add all. Now I get those in there. I'm going to make one more and I'm going to say true or false. 2 plus 2 equals 5. I'm going to add in my true or false, and then I got to make one more where it is going to be my code. So enter the code, and it will be, or you can say use T or F based on your answers in order. And you might have a better way of saying that so your students know what they're talking about. You'll see some of the other ones that I have in my examples. Again, I got to make this a short answer. And then I'm going to go down here to my snowman and I'm going to pick response validation. In this case, I have letters. So I'm going to select text and I have to make sure I'm using T's and F's. So Miss Young's their teacher. So true, false, false. So I'm going to say TFF. Okay, so I can say try again. One, or rather, at least one of your answers is incorrect. I can say use your critical thinking skills. And so now I got my 3 locks, and I'm going to make one more section, and this section is going to be congratulations. You made it. And I might put a picture in there. It might be a video of me, giving them a virtual high five. It might be a badge that they get to download and save. It might just be a code word that, the next day they have to provide to me or something. So something, again, we can make it kind of fun. So something you want to think about is, and you know your students best. If your students are going to get easily frustrated or you have a certain student that could get easily frustrated, maybe you take out some of the locks. Maybe you take out them all and you can make copies of this and you can assign them to different students in Google Classroom or your LMS, whichever one you're using. I would definitely use this within either a synchronous day or in person, something where you're there and available to help them. just so that if they do get stuck, we want students to ask questions. And this way, they have to ask a question if they can't move on. And so this is really great for those students that tend to just kind of move along and don't let you know that you're struggling or they're struggling. And so this is a good one for that. So whenever you make a Google form, I always recommend that you click on the eyeball to preview it. It will make your life a lot easier if you can figure out, did you make a mistake? Can you fix it before your students see it? So I'm going to type in my email, and you are welcome to email me with questions. You're welcome to connect with me on Twitter as well. I'm Techie Becky Young. So once they have that in, and you can have something fun in there about, are you ready to enter? If you are, click next. And so again, you can play around with this. You can make it as fun and creative as you want. Um, whatever works for you and your personality. So as students go through, we got Lock A, and again, you could put in a lot more directions, especially depending on your students. Color the ball. Okay, I'm gonna say that one's red and that one's blue. I have to enter my code, so I have A, then B. So I'm gonna type in A, then B. I click next, and since I got it correct, I'm able to move on. All right, so now I have this, and let's say I have no idea where IO is. I'm gonna say 7, 9, and 4. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 794. I'm going to click next. Oh, try again. Review the planet activity. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to review. Oh, wait, Jupiter. Jupiter has Io. My son is very into space, so he'd be mad at me if I didn't know that. All right, so I corrected it. I click next. I'm able to go on. And now I go through here. Yep, Miss Young's my teacher. Once it loads here. The year is 1900. No. Yeah, true, true. 2 plus 2 is 5. So I'm going to say true, false, true. Click next. Oop, at least one of my answers incorrect. It's this one. After I thought more about it and I tried again. Next. All right. Let's see, did I make it? Oh, I didn't change my answer. There we go. Next. All right, I made it. And so this is going to be something for students and they click submit and then you know where they are and they can work at their own pace. So one of the advantages of doing it this way rather than within groups, well, one, with social distancing and depending if you're hybrid or remote, you might not be able to group them in ways. You can certainly have students work together on one computer if that is possible, but I like to do it as individual students as well, because then it's going to be they can work at their own pace. When you're in a group, sometimes it's just the one that knows the answers that's kind of pushing them along because they want to get to the point where they escape. So this is one way that individual students can really shine and really get to know, what they don't know, and they can get the individual help that they need. So I hope this helps. Please take a look at the examples that I'm sharing as well. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can always email me or connect with me on Twitter. And thank you so much for attending the session.